It is lovely to have Wendy back with us in studio today. And as I mentioned earlier, we are going to be talking about vinegar. You might have heard Lester discussing this on the breakfast show a couple of days ago. The fact that there has been a vinegar shortage in South Africa that's been having all kinds of knock-on impacts into other product lines. It is a problem that we understand has largely been rectified, but a press release that was put out by one of the local vinegar manufacturers really piqued our interest. And Wendy, it sent you down a very tart vinegar rabbit hole of sorts, hasn't it?
I spent probably a ridiculous amount of time on this. So the difference between the various kinds of vinegar, we hear the names, I've never really given it much thought. I mean, obviously white wine vinegar is obvious, red wine vinegar, which a lot of the top chefs swear by as a staple to deal with, to cut through too much salt or too much
fat, or yeah.
And then what you can do with vinegar beyond the culinary, as well as I ended up looking at the vinegar mother and what that's. So I'd never heard that term, and how you can actually. It's the base of making vinegar, and you can create yourself a wonderful mother yourself.
Okay, so the mother recipe is coming later in the show.
It's coming. This and of course all the household things, the stains and everything. Which is funny aside, Pippa. When I started consumer journalism all those years ago in the late 90s on a Durban newspaper, this was like a new consumer column, and a lot of the readers on that Durban newspaper weren't really sure, because the paper never had anything like this before, what it entailed, and I totally unexpectedly got inundated, and I mean inundated with queries around how do I remove this stain and that, like some kind of, home.
Martha Stewart.
Exactly. So there was no Google then, and what I would do is ask my mom.
And the answer was usually vinegar in some form.
It often did involve vinegar, yes.
Okay, so we're going to go there, and thank you. We've had several people sending through your WhatsApps about how you use vinegar in your home in ways that aren't quite the norm, shall we say. So obviously we use it when we make salad dressing. You use it if you're making your own pickled onions. But what other applications? Keep them coming. We are going to reflect them a little bit later on in the show. So please tell us about your hacks, whether it's cleaning and disinfecting or health use. What is the use of vinegar that you swear by in your house? Pop through a WhatsApp to 072 567 1567. But before we get stuck into the sour, Wendy, we have a little sweet to share with our audience.
Yes, I'm sorry, I was jumping the gun there but a few minutes ago. So you remember, well, if you missed last week's show, we heard from Philip Berman about his agonizing wait for a visa that would allow him to visit his family in Dublin, and particularly his beloved 9-year-old granddaughter. The two of them have a very, very special bond. So he applied in March. At the time, well before, they was told, I think at the time it was 9 to 12 weeks at that
lead time that you needed.
That was the official line. He spent thousands on his trip to Cape Town, because he lives in Victoria West in the Northern Cape. He spent thousands to get here via overnighting in George,
he also spent thousands on his plane ticket, because they told him he had to book his ticket before he applied.
Exactly, and he got a special that's now for him to get the same ticket would be double. So there is such a lot at stake. So the good news is that he WhatsApped me yesterday to say his name. We spoke about that Irish government portal it's the only means of getting any information, and it is in the form of not an update. Your name is either there, having you're successful in getting your visa, or it's not there. And it was there on Tuesday when Philip checked, and I was, WhatsApping him all these, elated, celebratory emojis, and then he was like, "No, but there's another problem now." So there's passports with VFS. I haven't quite established if it was in Pretoria or here in Cape Town, but he paid 1,000 rand for that visa to VFS in March here in Cape Town. He paid the Irish government actual visa fee. He paid the VFS processing fee, and he paid the courier fee, because given that he lives a way out, he didn't want to have to make that trip
again
at the cost of 7,000 rand return or whatever. So he thought they could courier it to me. So he doesn't have his passport in hand, and it's actually quite critical now, because we're sitting, it's Wednesday. His flight is from Joburg to Dublin on Tuesday. He has to overnight in George, because he doesn't want to drive at night. Long story. So he flies to George, he overnights. So he leaves his home, essentially, bottom line, at 1 o'clock, lunchtime-ish, on Monday.
That's the deadline. He has got to
No,
start the journey
on Tuesday.
at 1 o'clock on Tuesday.
So he needs to pretty much Monday, because Tuesday morning is far too late. He needs that passport to be delivered to him in his home on Monday. And we now, how many business days? I don't know.
Today's Wednesday,
weekends.
Thursday, Friday, Monday. That's three business days left.
So yeah, he WhatsApped me to say, I've checked with FedEx. They have not received my passport from VFS. When I applied, he was handed a FedEx tracking number. He says, FedEx tells me that they cannot go and pick up the passport from VFS. They have to wait for VFS to initiate the process and say, come and fetch
it's ready, come and
get it. So I have emailed VFS's outsourced PR agency and all the internal addresses that she used. So I've replied all to say, please, can you now just contact the courier, get this to happen? Because, I know Philip's anxiety levels are through the roof, but I've been holding his hand through this thing, and I'm feeling super. I haven't got anything at stake. It's just that I'm living sort of
vicariously through his stress.
Yes, and feeling. I just can't bear that it's now granted, but he still now has this anxiety over: is he actually going to get the passport in hand before he leaves his home at lunchtime on Tuesday?
Well, I hope that when we come to air next week, we will be telling you that Philip is on a plane.
We'd better.
On his way.
Yeah.
We'd better. But we will keep you posted on this one. Okay,
because
so fingers crossed, toes crossed, everything you can clap for us, please, for Philip, that passport gets there.
There are many others in this situation, and many have missed, as we read last week, have missed out on important trips because it just didn't happen. But Philip's now become our poster visa person.
For this one, yes. Okay, so we will let you know the final chapter of that saga when we chat this time next week. For now, though, let's move on to the vinegar story. And Wendy, in the course of looking into what is now actually almost a non-story because the vinegar shortage is coming to an end, but you found out all kinds of interesting things about the way it's made and the real thing.
The first thing I found out is that the name means sour wine, which is not anything that I'd ever contemplated.
Never
Even
heard that before.
the VIN had anything to do with wine. It never occurred to me. So it is sour wine, and the real stuff. I will talk about the imitation stuff just now, and I learned something interesting there as well, is made via a two-step fermentation process. So the first step is that the sugars are converted to alcohol, the sugars in the
grape,
the wine, or the grape, or the apples, or cider, whatever the case may be, converted to then that becomes alcohol. Then a second fermentation converts the alcohol to acetic acid, which is the main component of vinegar. And then different kinds of vinegar are created by using various base ingredients, fruits or grains. I do a lot of Asian cooking, so I always have rice vinegar.
Yeah.
Obviously, that comes from rice, which then influences the final flavor. So apple cider vinegar is made from fermented apple juice, red wine vinegar from red wine, and you get the picture, white wine vinegar. So balsamic vinegar is made by crushing, and I never really knew this. I never bothered to find out. Balsamic vinegar, it can be a huge price because of the process, and we've all heard of Modena and everything. But essentially, it's made by crushing grapes, including the seeds and the stems.
Oh, that's interesting.
I didn't know that either. To create what's called a must. The must is then simmered to concentrate the sugars and then fermented. And this is where the expensive bit comes in if you buy the top stuff. It's aged in wooden barrels for years, often decades. And during that aging process, it's transferred to smaller barrels of different woods, enhancing the flavor complexity.
Interesting.
Traditional balsamic vinegar from Modena or Reggio Emilia follows very strict regional standards and regulations, and so that it's like whiskey or wine
or port or champagne.
All of those
got its
aged in
yes.
in the woods, and so it made me think of it long ago when I was still based in Durban. A top Durban chef contacted me furious because she'd heard something. Her normal supplier was on leave or something. I don't know, but she used this new supplier. She ordered 5 liters of balsamic vinegar from the supplier, and she paid top price for it, and she delivered this 5-liter bottle, unlabeled, just this 5-liter bottle, and she said, I want you to taste it, it's absolute rubbish. And I can't even remember what I did with that story, but yeah, clearly there's a lot of expensive food ingredients. We've talked about honey often enough. Olive oils and other that are faked, and obviously balsamic vinegar, given that the good stuff can go for quite a price, is one of those products that is a subject of food forgery.
Interesting,
as well.
and fraud in the production market. Okay, so be aware if you're not paying a good rate for balsamic vinegar in particular. Question whether you are in fact getting proper balsamic vinegar is the message. Now, what about the imitation stuff, Wendy?
Okay, so what I learned I knew there was imitation stuff. I wanted to know, that you get some cheap stuff in the supermarket. I use it for spirit vinegar. I use it instead of a fabric softener with a couple of drops of essential oil. So I wanted to know, could that be imitation? Because it's or would they have to label? So the food labeling regulations in this country require a label declaration that says this is imitation. So if the label doesn't say imitation and you're buying it from a reputable outlet store, supermarket, then it has gone through the fermentation process. It has not been in the beautiful oak barrels and all of that that the balsamic goes in, but it's not imitation. It has been fermented to create vinegar the traditional way.
How do they create the imitation version?
Okay.
Then? So is there no fermentation in that process?
No, there's no fermentation.
Okay.
It's a bit like sparkling wine versus MCC.
Okay.
Where
there's certain steps that have got to be there.
Aerated wine versus the whole fermentation that creates the certain
bubbles.
kind of bubble, the natural bubble, as well as that deep complex flavor, right? So with imitation vinegar, which incidentally is used by most fish and chip shops, chippies in the UK, because it is it's cheaper, and they add a caramel coloring. Basically what they do is mix water, acetic acid, and flavorings and colorings to give it that caramel color.
Oof.
And because it's so widely used, some people say they prefer it because it's what they've become used to. Like some people would prefer margarine to butter because it's what
they know.
What they know.
Interesting.
So yeah, if you don't see the word imitation vinegar in this country, it has gone through the fermentation process. In the UK, they call it non-brewed condiment, which will tell you it hasn't been fermented, it hasn't been brewed. Okay. NBC for short. So and they have to say on the label NBC.
Okay, so the brown stuff in the chippy is not necessarily actually
probably,
vinegar.
Unless it's a very high-end niche one.
I mean, one application where I can see that being necessary is if you've got a clientele that includes a lot of Muslim customers who won't want alcohol, you want a product that hasn't been fermented.
And so that is...
You could use the imitation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for people who,
or teetotalers for any other reason. Yeah. Okay. So just be aware of that. There are imitation vinegars out there, but they need to be labeled as such if you're buying them here in South Africa.
Yes.
So just read your labels carefully if you want to be sure you're getting the real thing.
That tells me that the stuff I pour into my fabric softer section of my washing machine is actually has been fermented in the traditional
sense
way.
Okay.
It just has been. It hasn't not using premium ingredients like apples and things.
Okay. After the break, we're going to share some of your tips. But quickly before we get there, Wendy, just to recap, the vinegar shortage is coming to an end. We understand. But what was the main cause of that?
Okay, so there were a few. It was a whole lot of things that came together. The rising cost of raw materials, logistics constraints, surging demand across the food and industrial sectors. And I think what tipped it over was a major vinegar manufacturer in South Africa, SHL wholesalers, shut down last year after a SARS investigation led to the discovery of false export documents. Ooh. And the owner was sentenced to 15 years in prison for tax fraud.
Okay, so a whole link in the supply chain was
a major
out.
supplier, yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of a perfect storm of
yes.
factors coming together. And of course, as this made us realize, Wendy, it wasn't just the vinegar that got harder to find, was all the other products vinegar is a component of, like mayonnaise, like salad dressings,
yes.
like tomato sauce. The packaging
Cleaning
industry
things,
felt the knock-on impact.
yes.
Everybody felt it.
Okay. There was a problem with industrial packaging as well at some point, and that affected the supply of vinegar as well. So as you say,
real perfect storm. Okay. Yeah. So, but the good news is it does seem like that storm is moving on now,
yes.
and the supply chain is getting back to normal. Let's dive into the many interesting uses for vinegar that we've all found. And I say we because I use it sort of off-label, if you like, in my house in two ways, Wendy. as a cleaning agent. So obviously I keep the balsamic, the raspberry vinegar, the wine vinegar, etc. for cooking. But for cleaning purposes, there are 2 or 3 things I swear by it. And I always, as a result, have a big bottle of just plain spirit vinegar in the kitchen. Block drains, a mixture of bicarb and and spirit vinegar. Fizzes, I swear by it.
Without all those nasty
chemicals from the drain cleaners. You pour some bicarb powder into the affected drain and then splash over the white wine vinegar, and the reaction that it creates is instant fizzing, foaming, very satisfying, and more importantly does the trick.
Right.
Second one is I use it every 6 months or so. I give my washing machine a good clean out.
Yeah, I do that too.
Vinegar into the drum, bicarb into
I do that too.
Fabric softener
it's
dispenser.
It's very good for dealing with soap scum.
Yeah, and just run it on the hottest cycle and it lifts all the scum off the inside of the drum. And then the third thing is very similarly if you're wanting to clean your air fryer. And anybody who has tried to clean the inside of an air fryer knows how difficult it is.
I don't have one.
A little bit of vinegar into the bottom with some boiling water. I think I did a half a cup of vinegar and 2 cups of boiling water. You run it on its highest heat for about 5 minutes and then leave it to sit and steam for about 10 minutes. Take out the drawer, pour out the vinegar, and just give it a wipe down with some kitchen cloth.
Okay.
And you can wipe the element as well by then because the element is cooled. And all that lovely steam has cleaned off all the gunk. So those are the 3 cleaning purposes I use it for in my house. Let's take a look at what you are doing. Patricia says vinegar is an absolute must in our home. I add it to my linens wash. It makes it fresh and brightens the whites. It gets rid of ants. Mixed with bicarb, it cleans drains. Yes, it does. She's got another one for that combination, though. It cleans stainless steel cutlery. I hadn't thought of that one. She says, I've also used it to clean the extractor fan and hood over the stove. And that would make sense, very similar to the air fryer story.
Yes.
Of using it to get into those very hard little nooks and crannies of the heating elements, etc., and extractor elements.
And you don't have to worry about what chemicals are going to go in there and maybe interact with your food
later on because it's a food grade product. Danny says, on a dry, sunny day, I spray vinegar on the weeds and the moss on the pool paving and the driveway, and it kills them. Trish says, I swear by this mixture. I've passed it on to all of my friends as a cleaning mixture. A good squirt of sunlight liquid, 3 good glugs of white vinegar, put that in a spray bottle, fill it up to the top with hot tap water, and put the spray nozzle on, mix it all up, and then use this mixture when doing dishes by hand, especially for greasy frying pans. You just spray it on, scrub with a long-handled dish brush, and watch it magically clean everything. I also use this on collars and cuffs, on counters, mirrors, windows, the shower door, the bathroom.
Good.
It gets rid of smells quickly. It decreases build-up quickly. Don't make it too strong because you don't want to have to rinse. Approximate measurements are 1 teaspoon of sunlight to 3 dessert spoons of white vinegar to 500 mils of hot water. And Trish, interestingly, that's the recipe I was given as a toilet spray during the drought crisis when we were all trying not to flush.
Yes.
And I've still got that bottle in my kitchen, in my bathroom.
Okay.
Exact same measurements. Teaspoon of sunlight liquid, 3 dessert spoons of white vinegar, and 500 mils of hot water. So Trisha's all-purpose cleaner is made with those ingredients. Jill says, I made apple cider vinegar, which was quite an experiment. I've still got bottles and bottles of it. I drink it with some sparkling water. Now, here we go. Some of my bottles produced a mother, which I never knew what to do with. So I just bottled them in vinegar, and then I had to chuck them out recently because they were so disgusting. And the biggest problem I had was fruit flies. Where they came from, I don't know. I then read to put some apple cider vinegar and sunlight liquid in a small container, which would drown them. It was huge fun. Now, Jill mentions the mother. Sorry for the fruit flies. Wendy, explain to us what the mother is, please.
Okay. So, now I've got to find it in my notes because we've gone. Okay. So, it's a gloopy, jelly-like blob of cellulose. Like I would say more of a disc.
Delightful.
More of a disc than a glob. That would sit at the top of the liquid. So it transforms alcohol into tangy, tasty vinegar, and it can go on to make many, many more batches. I don't know if it ever goes into menopause. It stops being able to do it. But anyway, so here's what you do. And I've Googled this and tried to find the best recipe. So in a glass container, you mix 2 cups of raw apple cider or diluted wine. So it would be 1-to-1 with water. 50% of cider or apple cider on its own or diluted wine 1-to-1 with a quarter of a cup of raw unfiltered vinegar. So I think, okay, what is raw unfiltered vinegar? It's the kind that you get from health shops. Look for cloudy sediment because that's actually sediment of mother, right?
Okay.
You're propagating it, right? So you get 2 cups of cider or diluted wine with a quarter of a cup of raw unfiltered vinegar. You cover that in your glass container with cheesecloth, some fabric that breathes, and you store it in a warm, dark place. Those are hard to find now. Between 20 and 30 degrees centigrade. So maybe this is a summer thing in Cape Town. And wait 2 to 8 weeks. And this jelly-like mother disc then forms on the surface, and then you can use bits of that to propagate it. So I would make mine be really tasty with, whether it's apple or whatever you want to be the base, and red wine, whatever, and then you go on. And I am so going to try this. I had never even heard of a vinegar mother before.
Yeah.
So, I mean, clearly not a very good Martha Stewart. But I have returned to making my own salad dressings because even the premium ones, they're expensive, and I don't think they taste as good as homemade. So I'm going to be putting my new vinegar into my own salad dressings.
Okay.
In the future, I will report back
Let
on
us
that.
know.
We've got a few moments at the end of another series show.
Okay, let us know how the mother goes, please. This is going to be a familiar voice, and I'm looking forward to hearing this particular application.
Hello, Pippa. Interestingly enough, we use vinegar in the industry when we need to clear calcium.
Yeah.
So if you ever seen these in a garage where the water drips and there's this cake of calcium, vinegar clears.
Oh dear, we lost half the voice note there, but vinegar clears away calcium buildup. Thank you very much, Angelo D'Ambrosio, our DIY man, with that feedback. So that would make sense as to why it works on the shower doors.
It does, and I was going to say, apparently it breaks down tannin, so very good for stains, which we all experience, coffee and tea stains on the inside of mugs. So try your concoction, just plain vinegar.
Okay, so for a stained mug, just put some plain vinegar.
Diluted, I suppose.
Okay.
See how much you need to do the trick.
Faldila says her vinegar tip is to use half a cup of vinegar in a bucket of water to clean laminated flooring and ceramic tiles. Okay. No buildup. And have you seen the cost of tile cleaner lately?
Exactly.
So Faldila, that's a very useful tip. Thank you very, very much indeed. What else have we got here? Peter in Kenilworth says you've probably heard about the vinegar and bicarb unblocking the kitchen sink. You and I both, Peter. Sheila says, besides a dash of white vinegar on my smashed avo on toast, I use it in place of softener in my laundry.
Me too.
I've stopped using fabric softener altogether, so maybe I must try the vinegar, but I haven't missed it, I've got to be honest. And then Tony's got a health use. He says, I drink a small glass of apple cider vinegar every day. It's meant to be very good for you. And he then sent me the follow-up text about the research, which suggests it supports healthy blood glucose levels and can help lower cholesterol levels. Okay. Apple cider vinegar. Okay, please discuss that one with your doctor. Please discuss that with your doctor before you start playing around with it, and make sure that you're diluting said vinegar properly, etc. Sarah in Hout Bay says, my husband and son generate a huge amount of really smelly washing. Doesn't that apply to every household? She says, I add 3 cups of vinegar to my top loader with the washing liquid. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Chemical reaction of weak acid with ammonia helps to get the smellies fresh again, and it's also good for the stainless steel drum of the machine. 3 cups, though, is a lot.
It's also what came up a few times in my research, those stubborn male armpit stains.
Yes.
It's apparently a squirt of that on there is very good for lifting those out. I mean, we sound like Kim and Aggie from How Clean Is Your House?
On the BBC. Okay. Keep us in mind for the sequel, please. JD asks an interesting question. I don't know if you know the answer, Wendy, but he's asking, how long can you keep balsamic vinegar once it's opened? There's no expiry date on it.
Oh, that's a very good question, and I should have mentioned this in my prep, so thank you for the prompt. It's one of the few products that doesn't legally, in terms of our food labeling regulations, need a date mark. That's the official name, the proper name for expiry dates, because they're not actually expiry dates.
Yes.
But let me not go down there. So along with honey, sugar, it doesn't need an expiry date because it lasts forever.
Okay, so you can keep on using it. You might just need to filter off some of the sediment that gathers if you have kept it a very long time off the top, JP, or use it to try and grow your next batch. But there we go. Janice reckons you can use verjuice instead of vinegar. It's a much softer acid and is made from half-ripe grapes, not fermented, therefore no acetic acid. Also quite an expensive route, though, because verjuice costs an arm and a leg, doesn't it? Megan, thanks for the tip, telling us that at Babylon's Turin, they make balsamic vinegar and you can see how it reduces and watch the process. That's fascinating to watch. Megan?
I know that, and I've been many times. Oh, sorry, my mic. I've been many times and didn't know that, so that's very good to know. I'll certainly seek that out next time.
Okay. And then Mandy is just wanting to check that she heard you clearly, because she is seeing permutations in this conversation that we did not anticipate. Listen to this. So I just want to refresh to be clear.
What?
Balsamic vinegar, the good stuff, is made by fermenting the skin, the pips, and the juice of the grapes. I want to impress this Italian friend who married an Italian but was born here, claims she's Italian and knows everything about Italian, and I want to ask her if she knows how they make balsamic vinegar. I thought you were going to say you wanted to impress an Italian count somewhere and seduce him with the knowledge, Mandy, but okay, maybe you can go one up on your friend with that knowledge.
That was my research, so feel free to do your own, but yes, that also surprised me, so let us know how that pans out.
Okay. Apparently it is called a SCOBY as well. The same as you get a SCOBY for kombucha.
Kombucha, yes.
I'd rather have the SCOBY for the vinegar than the kombucha myself. But there we go. Thanks, Elsa, for informing us of that. Right. Let's have a look here. Sorry, no, it's not new. I'm not sure. There's not a name attached here. Vinegar, wasp stings, and jellyfish stings, and also spider bites. I remember that from blue bottle stings at the beach in East London. The lifesavers always had a bottle of spirit vinegar on hand.
Yes, I remember that too.
Strings. Thanks for reminding us of that.
It didn't work for me though.
I've never been stung, touch wood. So
I was stung on a trip to Durban. Grew up there, was in the surf, did everything in the water, and I got stung. And I did the aloe on the beach. I did the vinegar, progressed to allergics, and ended up in hospital because I was allergic and never knew.
Oh my gosh!
Yes.
Didn't know you could be. Okay. Fozia, that same combination with the 3 dessert spoons of vinegar to, this is just the vinegar, 3 dessert spoons of white vinegar to 750 mils of water. Fozia uses it to spray her roses, plants, and tomatoes. I love the idea of being able to use it in a veggie garden because it's food safe. No pesticides needed. Mozzie bites as well, in addition to the wasp stings and jellyfish stings. Sarah sent a follow-up. Sarah was the 3 cups of vinegar that we were a bit worried about. She's written to say, I have a very large Speed Queen machine, hence the 3 cups. You really need a large amount to get rid of the smellies, and you must understand I need the big guns. She writes. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, a few people asking, how do you use that mother? What do you add to it for the next crop? Did you get that far in the exploration?
Oh, now you got me.
Okay. So they're going to do some research on it, Lynn, but you've got the recipe on how to make it. What the next steps will be for making your batch.
Is how much you need.
How much you add to it.
Trial and error, I suppose.
Okay, we haven't got that far into the recipe research, I'm afraid, Lynn.
Let's see if I can...
Wendy will do a Google while we take a quick break. I tell you what, we'll give you some feedback, see what we found. We're also going to make space for 1 or 2 open line questions after this. For now, one more from Michael, who says he has used apple cider vinegar with a twig of rosemary for shampoo. Used it once a week for 5 years. I swim in the sea all the time, and this keeps my scalp and hair very healthy. Apple cider vinegar with a twig of rosemary. Well, given how much I've been struggling with some of the local shampoos, which just don't seem to lather as they used to. I sound so old saying that. But maybe I need to try apple cider vinegar with rosemary instead.
I think it's part of remember our Sunlight dishwashing liquid?
Yes, the reformulation of the product to
make
be more
it
planet friendly.
Yes, that's probably what's happened.
Except you now have to use 5 times the product to get the same result. That's a conversation for another day. Michael, thanks for the shampoo tip. Bridget says vinegar is also good to spray on cat wee to take the smell away. That's good news. Wendy, what did you find out about the mother?
Can I just tell you about, I can certainly tell you about dog wee, and that is the best tip I ever got is tea tree oil. You make a solution of tea tree oil. It's expensive, but you don't need much. And it totally takes the smell out.
Thanks for the tip.
Okay, so about the mother, the mother of a vinegar. You need about 10 to 20% of the total volume of vinegar that you're wanting to create. So to make a liter, you would need 100 to 200 mils of mother.
Okay.
that helps. So between 10 and 20% of your intended ultimate volume of vinegar that you're going to create.
Okay. And then obviously you're going to play around with what goes into that, depending on what sort you want to create at the end of it.
More or less for your own personal taste. But
yeah.
It's a good question because and I would have had to look it up off air when I tried to do this myself. You do need to know, if you've never done it before, do you need the whole disc or what? So thank you for that question.
Okay, thanks so much. Now, on a completely different topic, I think we have got time to just squeeze in one or two open line questions, and this is a very current and relevant one. So Tyrone, thanks for your patience in waiting for an answer. Tyrone says, I booked a spa day at the spa on Zevenwacht Estate. I booked on the 4th of July and paid my 999 Rand. They emailed me to confirm and check our requirements for lunch. That was on the 4th of July. On the 9th of July, I received an email to say there will be no more treatments. The business has been sold. And then what do we do now? Because this is the letter that he was sent. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we've had to suspend all services until further notice. We sincerely appreciate your loyalty and support over the years. We're in the process of selling the business and therefore cannot commit to any future bookings. Possible refunds will be communicated in due course. Thank you for your understanding and patience. What does one do? Possible refunds. They took a booking 5 days before announcing they were selling the business.
Absolutely shocking.
It's totally unconscionable. They had to know that they would not honour that booking. So what does Tyrone do?
He sends me an email with all the details, and I very nicely try and get hold of that
Infinity Wellness Spa. Okay.
Get hold of them and very nicely suggest that they need to refund.
Okay.
Especially in the case of, vouchers are valid for 3 years, remember?
Yeah. So not only should his current booking be honoured or refunded,
don't rate the older one's chances, but in this case,
it's just 5 days before.
Unconscionable.
Yeah.
And that is an actual word that the Consumer Protection Act uses a lot, and it's very fitting.
Okay, so Tyrone, please pop through an email to Wendy on consumer@knowler.co.za, spelled KNOWLER. Please put spa booking in the CapeTalk spa booking in the subject line, and Wendy will keep her eye out for it. Forward her that letter that you have forwarded to me on WhatsApp as well, and she will try and get you your money back ASAP. And I'm sure Tyrone's probably not the only person similarly affected, because it's a very popular facility. So if others have had a similar situation of having a prepaid booking that now you've been told won't be honoured with no promise of a refund, let us know.
If the difficulty comes when a company goes into liquidation, because then you become a creditor. At the long list, at the bottom of a long list of other creditors, such as suppliers come before you and all the rest, and then you can only hope for a few cents in the rand. But up until that point, and especially, as I say, given the timing, he should be refunded.
Okay, thanks. And then one from Anne on email. Anne had a subscription to an American company called Headspace. I think it was a meditation app or something like that.
Okay.
She used to use it, but she no longer uses it, so she had no intention of renewing the subscription at the end of that year. And she says to me, at the time she took out the subscription, it was on a credit card payment, their website indicated in writing that she would be alerted with a reminder email before the subscription became due for renewal. And she says that never happened. She didn't get any email. They simply deducted another annual subscription fee from her card. And she has tried emailing them to say, hey, I didn't want this. I want to cancel the subscription. But she's had no response. And she's all but given up. But she said she's worried it's just going to happen again next year. And her wording to me was, I'm concerned about how to avoid this kind of incident going forward, not just with this company, but with any others. Now, it's an international company, so does South African law apply?
No, but this chargeback does. So I would certainly suggest that, chargeback is a consumer protection that's provided by the credit card companies, Visa and MasterCard worldwide, through the issuing bank. So whoever issued her credit card, you should go there and insist that they take forward a chargeback dispute, and she should get her money back that way.
Okay, so you go to your bank and ask for a chargeback. Wendy, this just reminded me, though, the process for us, if a South African company was involved here, that requirement to notify a consumer before you renew a subscription, does that apply to any kind of subscription?
Yes, the same would apply. They would have to notify you in advance. The same also applies to your fixed-term contracts, your
News 24, I'm looking at you. Sorry to say.
Okay.
I've been a subscriber since the very first introduction of subscription, and I've never once received that notification.
Okay.
It's renewed every year, and I don't mind because I've wanted to maintain the subscription, but I've never once received that notification from them.
As far as I'm aware, there should be a requirement for that. I can't see why it wouldn't be a requirement, because the Act is all about transparency and disclosure. What you don't want is companies to kind of rely on you forgetting, and you got to remember a year down the line that you've got to now cancel. There should be that reminder prompt.
Yeah. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can make a note in your diary for 363 days time or whatever. But what a schlep for every single. Paul saying if it's Apple, they'll refund. It wasn't an Apple purchase, by the way, Paul. Sorry, but Anne. Okay, so you go to your bank and you ask for the chargeback facility. Is there anything you can do in future to avoid this happening to you, Wendy?
Well, other than avoiding companies as international companies that have subscription renew, and making notes in your digital calendars or physical calendars, I mean, those are your two options.
Okay. And
sorry, I can just say that I've been reading stuff in international publications, news reports. There is a worldwide movement to stop auto renewals of all kinds, and I think that would be wonderful.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
We could get there. Yes.
Wouldn't it be fantastic? Okay, from your lips to God's ears, or whoever else is in charge. Wendy, we have to leave it there. But as always, thank you so much for all the work on behalf of our listeners. And a reminder that if you do want to raise a case with Wendy, the best way to do that is to go onto her website, wendyknowler.co.za. And the Knowler is spelled Knowler. She knows an awful lot about consumer stuff. wendyknowler.co.za.
And
there
vinegar.
is a contact form. Yeah, she now knows a lot about vinegar too. Contact form which prompts you for all the information that she possibly needs from you and really does speed up the process of enabling her to help you. So, Wendy, we'll chat again next week, Wednesday. Keep well in the meantime.
Thanks, Pippa.